pops up. So again, welcome to our virtual tree planting party. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ellie Perry. I'm the Sustainability Manager for the Office of Sustainability here at Cal State Dominguez Hills. We have a really great event lined up for you today with lots of guest speakers, presenters, trivia quizzes, all fun things for to basically celebrate our campus trees and trees in general. In terms of logistics, if you do have any questions as we go through the various elements of this awesome workshop, definitely feel free to use the chat box and type in any questions you might have. We're going to save those questions towards the end where we'll actually dedicate some time specifically for Q&A if any questions do come up. But other than that, kick back and enjoy the festivities. And I would like to start off our event, first of all, by introducing Deb Wallace, our VP of Admin and Finance, who's going to be providing some welcome remarks today. So Deb, if you want to kick it off.
Well, Ellie, thank you so much. And I am so glad to see the participation on this virtual tree planting party today. And it's been a busy day with providing budget information, and I'm sure Ellie and team are going to do just a fabulous job in providing the information today for sustainability. As you know, October is, you're joining us for this, and October is Campus Sustainability Month. It's been a month dedicated to providing information regarding what campuses are doing and have done in support of sustainability efforts. It also gives us an opportunity to ensure that we are educating our campuses on the work that needs to be done. And I just want to quickly say to Ellie Perry and her team, I know that she has a team of students that she works with and provides support for the campus, but under her leadership, this campus has grown by leaps and bounds as far as what is being done on the sustainability effort. I'm sure she has shared, and if you have participated in previous sessions, that this campus has gone from bronze to silver as far as sustainability efforts is concerned with ASHE. And that is the group that recognizes institutions across the country for their work in making sure that they are educating and providing sustainability efforts to their constituent individuals as well as their campuses. So I can't begin to thank enough Ellie for the work that she's done. Also too, I also would like to recognize Jonathan Scheffler, who is the Director of Facilities and Physical Plant, who has provided support for Ellie as well. Also Mr. Kenny Seaton, who has also done a phenomenal job on campus in making sure that not only the campus looks at our energy management as far as sustainability is concerned, but he is also instrumental in getting a very nice grant for the campus in order to pay for some of those efforts. So we have a lot of people that are working behind the scenes, and I am so excited for today. I'm glad that I can stay on the call. I thought I was going to have a conflict with another meeting, but that meeting has been canceled. So Ellie, take it away. I know you have a great presentation lined up, but I would be remiss if I did not recognize all the work that you and your team has done in the campus sustainability efforts to date. So looking forward to today's events.
All right, thank you so much, Deb, and definitely appreciate all the support you've given from Division of Admin and Finance, which is our home department or home division for facility services. So wouldn't happen if we didn't have such an awesome team, as you mentioned with Jonathan and Kenny and student interns and everyone else who's involved. So thank you so much. So I guess with that, let's kick off our virtual tree party event. So in terms of the sustainability accomplishments Cal State Dominguez Hills has achieved over the last 3 or 4 years or so, we are nationally recognized for our sustainability efforts. As Deb mentioned, there's a lot of things going on with our energy, with our sustainability in general. Most recently, if you called in for week 1, we actually did a whole virtual town hall pretty much covering our progress with ASHE, where we basically jumped from an unrated institution to a bronze level institution to a silver rated institution this summer, and we're well on our way to gold and platinum in terms of that progress. So we have a lot of things to be proud of when it comes to our sustainability accomplishments. And another second less known well fact is that we're also nationally recognized for our tree management practices, which is actually the topic of the event today. So specifically, the Arbor Day Foundation has a recognition program called Tree Campus USA, where they actually recognize outstanding universities that have very comprehensive tree management policies and tree management goals. So that we're going to dive in a little bit more on that specifically, and kind of highlight exactly what this contributes to our performance when it comes to sustainability and the importance of trees in our campus. Today's event is all about trees. One of the cool things about Tree Campus USA and why we're nationally recognized is that there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes by our Sustainable Landscape Committee. So this is a very unique committee, I would even say, even amongst the CSUs, where we intentionally brought together faculty, students, ground staff, facility staff, so we could collectively come together and develop a plan for the campus where we would actually be happy with the way that our landscape is being managed. So in that plan, it's actually available on our sustainability website. So if you go to CSUDH.edu sustainability, go to initiatives and landscape, it's actually right there. We adopted this plan in 2018. A lot of great faculty minds behind it, a lot of collaboration to make that plan a possibility. And it actually covers more than just trees. It actually covers native gardens, how do you treat student-run gardens versus the rest of grounds, who owns what, and all of those cool policies, irrigation standards, lots of different things. But specifically, we were able to achieve Tree Campus USA recognition because we have some pretty aggressive commitments when it comes to our urban tree canopy, one of which includes a commitment for attempting to achieve 25% tree cover by 2025. Currently, that's a pretty ambitious goal because based on existing GIS studies by faculty and students, we're only at 6%. So obviously that indicates that we have a long way to go when it comes to new trees on campus. To that end, we also have a pretty comprehensive facilities management goal in terms of whenever we remove trees on campus, because inevitably we can't, some trees are at the end of their life cycle, they're falling apart, anything like that. We do have a 1-to-1 replacement ratio. So we guarantee, hey, if we take out a tree, we will be adding a new tree to campus somewhere to make sure we're not creating a net loss when it comes to our tree population. And internally, we know that we're very short on the tree cover canopy goal, trying to go from 6% to 25%. So internally, we're actually trying to strive for 3-to-1 wherever we can. So every tree that we take out, we're trying to plant 3 in its place. We do have some ambitious goals when it comes to that. But to back up, the relationship with trees in Southern Californians is kind of tenuous compared to other regions of the country. In general, I think people have an appreciation for trees. Obviously, they help with climate change. They're nice to look at. But when it comes to Southern California specifically, we don't have a long history, right, of thinking like, oh, we're surrounded by, beautiful redwoods like in Northern California, or we have like a rainforest that we all respect and love that's in our backyards. So there are some questions that people have when it comes to trees, especially in a very urbanized environment like we have in Southern California, because they function very differently. So my goal for this presentation is just to kind of cover those basics of like, well, why should we care about trees if we're in Southern California? What do the trees actually do for us? And how does that influence our actual urban forestry management when it comes to Cal State Dominguez Hills? And hopefully from there, we'll actually transition over to more kind of fun facts about trees, as well as how to actually advocate and care for trees at your own home. So we'll be turning it over to some guest presenters at that point. So with that, let's get started. Especially working in facility services, we tend to think of trees as a cost. They cost money to water, they cost money to maintain. And in some schools of thought, there's a lot of this attitude in Southern California of like, well, aren't we in a desert? Shouldn't we just replace everything with cacti or like, mesquite or something that's like super desert friendly because we're in a drought prone region? And that's probably not the best way to think about it. We kind of are built into this idea of like, oh, we're very water restricted. But when you think about what our region historically has looked like, it's not a pure desert, it's chaparral. So we actually are, if you look at a natural environment in Southern California, you'll see trees. They might not look like the trees we're familiar with, but you'll see oaks, you'll see chaparral, you'll see other shrubs and other things that are actually thriving in that environment. So regionally, we are equipped to handle trees. And the other thing too is to think about, well, cities aren't necessarily a natural environment anyway. With cities, especially some places urbanized as Los Angeles County, you've got a lot of surfaces that are very impermeable that create a lot of heat. And that urban heat island effect is actually very significant when it comes to the interaction between buildings and people in cities. So to really understand what the urban heat island effect does is I want you to visualize a really hot summer day. And think about, sitting under a tree in a nice park versus the middle of an asphalt road. Obviously, if it's a really hot day, you're going to want to sit underneath that tree, right? And that's basically what green infrastructure does and what trees can do, is that they provide an urban cooling effect to help break up that incredible heat island effect where cities and their impermeable surfaces are building up that temperature way more than natural surfaces do. So that's really critical in terms of, hey, you don't want to be in the middle of a desert where you're frying under, asphalt and all these impermeable surfaces and buildings radiating heat on you. You want to be able to break that up. The second point too is that trees are seen as something that causes us to waste water resources, but the opposite is actually true. So trees actually increase water supply in cities. And the reason for that is that in a typical city, all of those impermeable surfaces tend to rush all the water out to the ocean without ever giving it a chance to actually percolate into the ground and actually add to our water table. So green spaces and trees can actually help combat urban runoff by allowing that water to actually slow down and have enough time to infiltrate our water table so we can replenish our supply. So they do provide a very key role in actually helping alleviate this kind of desert assumption that we have about our environment, in our particular region. The second question too is that, okay, so if we can agree that trees are valuable in an urban landscape like our campus, the second question is oh, well, then you should just all plant native trees and nothing else. So if you look at our plan, you'll notice that we have natives, but they're not dominating the entire campus. At no point in the plan do we say, oh, everything all the trees that we plant need to be California native species. And the reason for that is actually climate change. People might assume, okay, well, we just plant a bunch of, California oaks and we're good. But with climate change, nobody really knows what that's going to do to the plants that live here. So in case you aren't aware, you could probably feel it now. Every year, it's the hottest year on record. Southern California, all model predictions basically say it's just going to get hotter over the next 50 years, more extreme heat days, just longer periods of drought. So basically, it's going to get hotter. And unfortunately, with climate change, that change is happening so rapidly that we don't know if the native species that we have here are even going to be able to adapt in time to those kind of rapid climate changes. So plants that have been adapted for this environment won't be able to survive in another 50 years, potentially. So that we need to really hedge our bets when it comes to that. The other bad side about climate change is that it also increases the ability of other vector species to kind of take over new habitats. And in general, invasive species, can actually spread to places that they wouldn't have normally before. And a really good example of something that's hitting Southern California specifically is the polyphagus shottle borer. So this is a really invasive beetle from Southeast Asia, I believe, which has actually decimated acres and acres and acres of our natural woodlands. And many parts of our cities as well. So even, for example, the Huntington Gardens has lost several hundred trees to this beetle that seems to be unstoppable, and people still don't know how to stop it. The one thing we do know is natives are especially susceptible to that beetle because they don't have the natural resistance. So making sure that we have trees that might be able to survive these pest invasions is going to be pretty critical. And again, we need to have an urban forest that's going to be resilient to these unprecedented changes in climate and invasive species and everything else that's coming our way. So as a result, our plan looks different than a plan that just says all California natives forever. And in terms of what trees do for cities specifically, so we're all aware that, like, if trees are in a national park, that's awesome, they're beautiful, they do great things, but they actually do perform a very specific function for city environments as well. So the biggest thing is urban cooling. So again, going back to the urban heat island effect, trees help reduce urban heat islands, which are really critical as the environment gets warmer. So as you're going from building to building, having shade cover and actually being able to bring that localized temperature down is really key for pedestrians and people trying to enjoy our cities and buildings. And actually can actually serve as an energy efficiency measure if you actually place the trees along the side of buildings at strategic points, because it can actually bring down the heating load on that building as well. So you can actually reduce your air conditioning costs if you plant a tree in the right place. Aesthetically, they are obviously very beautiful. So, I mean, who doesn't want to walk down a tree-lined walkway or have, beautiful trees to look at as you're going down the sidewalk? It actually has been shown to increase your mental health. So it's nice to look at nature. And also from a financial perspective, it actually increases property values as well. So if you actually plant a tree in your yard, people might actually want to buy your property more because it has this beautiful tree, enhancing the aesthetics of that building. Also, in terms of localized air quality, so in addition to helping combat climate change by reducing, carbon dioxide, it can actually help reduce ozone and particulates from car exhaust fumes. And as you know, in Los Angeles County, we get a lot of smog, right? So actually having localized air quality benefits by having trees around is actually very beneficial as an urban dweller. And again, they also provide some pretty key stormwater filtration, water retention benefits that are really beneficial to our cities as a whole. And then they also provide some key urban habitat. So again, because we have so little green space, they do provide a key resource for increasing urban biodiversity, providing habitat, food, protection for native species, or just animal and pollinator species in general. So just having that resource is pretty critical to make sure we don't have a very sterile cityscape that's not able to support wildlife. And thirdly, another question is, well, do we have enough trees in Los Angeles? So, if you think about it, there's kind of the question of like, well, what is our tree quantity like? What should it look like? But distribution is also just as important as quantity. Because if you'll notice, Los Angeles, if you look at it from like an aerial view, it's a lot of hardscape, right? And also in terms of the tree cover, we may average 21%, but that doesn't mean that all the trees are equally distributed. So if all the trees are packed out into national forests on our parks in the outskirts of the cities, like those communities aren't getting those benefits. And unfortunately, like with a lot of issues related to environmental racism, usually communities that have the tree deficit are our poorest neighborhoods and or communities of color. So that actually does represent a significant kind of like environmental racism issue, that we don't have enough tree access for the communities that need them. And as a result, because they lack these trees, they're more vulnerable to extreme weather events, they have higher energy costs, they have poor air quality, which are all things that, that are unfair. So helping to add tree cover to these under-resourced regions can really help to balance out our cities. But in general, as a particular county or a particular region, we definitely have less green space than the rest of the country. So in terms of our average, LA County is about 3.3 acres of green space per 1,000 residents, and the national median is closer to 6.8. So we have about half of the green space that most other counties across the US have, and we're 74th out of 100 major cities when it comes to our access to green space as well. So that's definitely a regional issue that we face, and trees are an important equation to solving that. In terms of our campus tree facts, so specifically for CSUDH, so now that we've kind of gotten a sense of these large regional issues, like what are we doing as a campus to help fix this? So in terms of what our urban forest looks like, CSUDH, per our last tree inventory in 2019, we have about 1,400 trees that represent about 32 different species. We actually have a public version of this map up on our website with the link there. And in terms of what those species are, the top 5 species are pretty much eucalyptus at 549 trees. We have about 168 broadleaf paperworks, which is also kind of an Australian tree. Brush box is about 84, again, an Australian tree. Carrot woods, we've got about 69 of those, and then we've got a lot of Canary Island pines as well. So that's our species distribution, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're happy with it. So when it comes to our tree roots of why our urban forest looks this way, like why do we have so many eucalyptus? So that's mostly because like in the 1970s, as part of the original architectural design, they really focused on eucalyptus as kind of like this monoculture like stand to create a visual effect. However, the problem with that is that, that was in the 1970s. We're in 2020 now. So these trees are kind of at the end of their life cycle as it is. So eventually they're going to have to be replaced with something. And also eucalyptus from a grounds management or facilities management perspective, they're very hazardous. Those trees fall quite a bit. They're very branchy in terms of shedding a lot. You can see all the eucalyptus leaves on the sidewalks at certain times. They're very susceptible to pest invasion as well. So there's a lot of issues in terms of trying to phase out the eucalyptus with better species. So our goal with the sustainable landscape plan is to really replace it with something cleaner and better adapted to those urban resiliency goals that we covered before. So to that end, if you're trying to understand, why do we plant where we plant? This is actually part of the living laboratory / arboretum vision that our original founding faculty members who helped develop the plan had envisioned for the campus. So the idea is that we wanted a landscape that could also serve the teaching mission of the institution, where they could actually walk students from one corner of the campus to another and encounter a whole different biome that's also adapted for our region. So this is an example of different biomes that feature convergent evolution, which is the idea that we have very similar climates to other regions across the globe. So for example, everyone always hears like California has a Mediterranean climate, but obviously the Mediterranean climate has a Mediterranean climate as well. So those plants tend to do very well here because we have very similar climates. These regions have been broken up across the campus where, kind of on the northwest side, you've got mostly California natives, European Mediterranean species on the right side, moving down to Australian and South African and South American, which all have trees and plants that are very adapted to our similar climates and will do well here, especially when it comes to their water needs. When it came to deciding the plant palette or making suggestion, all of the trees features are pretty much water-wise species that are adapted to these similar biomes. And are also non-invasive. So basically, if we have to go and plant something, let's say by, Welch Hall or something like that, we'll try to focus more on California natives and kind of create that zone there. Versus, if we had we wanted to plant something near parking lot 7, we would focus on South African species so that we can still get that nice transition so that we can actually compare the plants and run into different examples of those planting palettes. And another thing too that these geographic zones represent is that we're also trying to avoid monocultured stands, even if they're approved species. So the last thing we want is like a big row of the exact same tree, like, oh, we're going to have like 15 like California sycamores and they're going all right next to each other, all right next to Welch Hall. And we're trying to avoid that because, again, that pest deterrent. So if you create a single zone of the exact same tree, if you find a pest that really likes that tree, it's going to have nothing stopping it from basically eating through that entire stand. So we also try to mix up different species to make sure that there's a maximum diversity so that they're not all getting taken out by the same pests and pest factors. Hopefully that gives you an understanding of kind of like how the campus is oriented. And in terms of how you can support, we're also, we're really open to tree donations. And with, a campus like ours, we could always use more trees. As you saw, we have a very aggressive 2025 goal. So if you know donors or if you're interested in kind of leaving a legacy for Cal State Dominguez Hills, let's say you're graduating or you want to, just donate a tree, we actually have a Give Now page, right there on the development, Give Now page website. And you can actually just click it from our website as well. But basically, it'll send you to the tree planting fund, and you can actually automatically allocate funds to trees, and including notes about your preferences about where you might want to help us reforest. And an example of how we're able to tie this in as well is that we have a green graduation pledge. So, if you don't want to pay the money directly, we also once a year send out a green graduation pledge. It's actually still live. So anyone who's graduating in the class of 2020 through 2025 can actually sign the pledge, which just basically says, I promise to consider the environment when making future career decisions. And we'll actually donate $1 for every pledge that comes in your graduating class. And based on how much comes in, we'll actually plant a tree in your honor. So we actually will be showing you a video of some of the trees that are going in as a result of that in just a minute. So when it comes to off-campus efforts, so in your neighborhoods, there are resources available to you in terms of helping to reforest our urban cities. So for example, the city of Los Angeles has a tree street planting program through City Plant. So if you do live in the city of Los Angeles, you actually have a very robust free street tree program where they'll just come to your house and actually load up your whole neighborhood with trees if you want. So that's available to you as well. Unfortunately, with Los Angeles County being so spread out and even people coming from other regions, it's very localized, but it doesn't hurt to contact your local city government because as a resident, you're their customer. So if you have a request for, you know, hey, I think our neighborhood or this park really needs more urban tree cover, they're more likely to listen to you as a resident and try to allocate their tree resources in that direction. Also, there's nothing stopping you from adding trees to your own yard or private property. And in addition to, you know, helping with these urban resiliency efforts, they can actually help beautify your neighborhood locally and help increase property values, as well as increase the property values of your own house. So now might be a good time to think about planting that nice fruit tree or, you know, a nice water-wise tree for your yard and really incorporating that into your landscaping decisions. So I guess with that, the new trees that I wanted to announce that we are planting this fall, thanks to Grounds. Through that tree fund donation, we actually had an emeritus faculty member who's going to be planting a couple of ginkgo trees outside the new science building as a legacy for the biology department. We also have this fall going in a bunch of tipus, which are a South American tree that's pretty water-wise going into the activities field, hopefully going to provide some shade for athletes and spectators. 5 of those trees came from that green graduation pledge that I mentioned, and 7 directly from the Grounds budget. So we'll see a video on that in just a second. Also, we're planting an apricot tree for our Earth Day Grove since we missed Earth Day this year. So that'll be coming soon in the next month or so to help honor our Green Career panel from last week. And in general, we're actually going to be putting about 30 more trees over the next month out of Grounds' budget, and they're going to be adding these to high-profile areas to help add that shade for pedestrians. So hopefully by the time you come back to campus, you'll have a nice shade-covered experience as you walk from building to building with that. So I guess just wanted you to show you a quick, like less than 2-minute video on what it takes to plant a tree on our campus. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video for you. So that was our awesome Grounds team who's been very active even during the virtual fall semester. And as you can see, it's actually quite hard to plant these trees. So I really appreciate everything Grounds has done to help build up our urban forestry forest canopy. And as I mentioned before, there's going to be a lot more trees going in this fall. So great work, guys. You know, obviously we couldn't take you there live in terms of actually being able to see the trees being planted, but hopefully that video gives you a little bit of a view on that. So hopefully you found that presentation educational in terms of understanding our urban forestry goals. And at this point, we're going to wake you up a little bit with a quick Kahoot quiz by our VISTA member, Scarlett, who works for the Office of Sustainability. And we do have a prize for the winner as well. So be sure to get out your devices as Scarlett shares instructions for that. So Scarlett, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Yes. 1 second here while I figure out my screen share. Okay. All right. So if you guys want to go ahead and get out your phones or you play on your laptop here. Let's see. Okay, so can everybody see my screen there?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect.
For people who aren't familiar with Kahoot, did you want to provide some instructions about how to log in?
Yes, sorry about that. So if you guys want, you're gonna go to I believe it's like Kahoot .com. So you just type in Kahoot on Google, or you can also download the app onto your phone, and pretty much all you're gonna do is put the key right here, and then it'll ask you to put in your like your name or like a little nickname you want to put there, but for the opportunity drawing purposes, just go ahead and put your name and your last name on there. And yeah, and you know, once everybody starts, we'll go ahead and once everybody joins, we'll go ahead and get started. Does anybody have any questions regarding how to log in? So you'll join right here at kahoot.it on the screen.
Oh, and if you're wondering what the prize is, we're giving out a bonsai tree planting kit. So you'll have your own little bonsai tree for your office or your desk at home. So definitely feel join in if you're interested in the chance to win that.
Cool. All right, so we're still waiting for a few more participants. Is anybody having issues joining? I can try to help.
I'm on my phone and I'm using Zoom on my phone, and also have Kahoot already on my phone as an app. So I hope I don't have problems jumping back and forth between apps.
Okay, if anything, I'll go ahead and say the question out loud.
Oh, great, perfect.
You won't have, yeah, so you can disregard the Zoom for now, and just stay on your on the Kahoot app.
Okay.
So we're not gonna be using Zoom, or actually, yeah.
Well, you're gonna use it, but you're gonna say it out loud, so I'll be able to hear it.
I was just like, I'm sharing my screen here.
Okay, I'll hear it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Anybody else having issues trying to join the Kahoot? All right, if not, all right, 11. That way we can get started soon. All right, am I okay to start the Kahoot now? No, anybody else trying to join? If not, I'll go ahead and start. Okay. So first question. How many pounds of CO2 does the average tree remove from the atmosphere every year? 48, 50, or 24. 3 more seconds, 2 more seconds, 1. All right, so that was 48.
Can you make sure to say the colors too? Because if I'm using the app, I don't know what colors they are.
Okay, sure, sounds good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, what percentage of the national CO2 emissions on average do the US forests absorb each year? So red is 10%, blue is 100%, or yellow 50%. All right, 2 more seconds, 1. Okay, so correct answer was red. And we have Maya Sloth leading the scoreboard here.
That's right.
True or false? Trees are the longest living organisms on Earth and never die of old age. So blue is true, red is false. All right, 6 more seconds, 5, 4, 2, 1. Okay, the answer to that was true. Rufus is now on the lead for the scoreboard here. All right, so trees cannot grow in what continent? Red, Africa, blue, Antarctica, or yellow, Asia? Four more seconds, 3, 2, 1. Correct answer here was Antarctica. All right. How old is the oldest tree in the world? Red, 4,000 years, blue, 3,000 years, or yellow, 9,550 years. Five more seconds. Perfect. So the correct answer here was 9,550 years. Maya Sloth is back in the lead. So how tall is General Sherman, the largest sequoia tree in the world? Red, 300 feet, blue, 275 feet, or yellow, 700 feet? Five more seconds. The correct answer here was blue, 275 feet. Okay, how many species of trees are there in the world? Over 6,000 or 60,000, excuse me, that's red. Blue, about 100, or yellow, 5,000. Five more seconds. Correct answer here was over 60,000 different types of species. All right, and how much of the Amazon rainforest is gone? Red, about 50%, blue, about 20%, or yellow, about 70%. Five more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Correct answer here is about 20% of our Amazon rainforest is gone. And then second to last, trees in the cities can help lower the urban heat island effect by how many degrees on average? Red, 15 degrees, blue, 20 degrees, or yellow, between 2 to 9 degrees. Correct answer here was yellow, between 2 to 9 degrees. All right, and then the last question here. A shade tree can help cool your home or office building by blank in the summertime. Red, 10 degrees, blue, 20 degrees, or yellow, 30 degrees. Five more seconds. All right, correct answer here was 20 degrees. All right, so the winner of our opportunity drawing today is let's see. Maya Sloth, congratulations. You won a little bonsai tree. So
Oh, yes. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. I'm gonna go ahead and put my email address on the chat box. Go ahead and email me your mailing address so we can send that to you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Scarlett. Hopefully you all had fun with that that fun trivia quiz. And next up, we actually have a video from Kelly Dottie, and I think Kelly was going to provide a little bit of an introduction to who she is, as well as what the video is about. So Kelly, if you want to introduce yourself and say hi. Oh, you're on mute, by the way.
There we go. Hi, I'm Kelly Dottie. I teach out of the Science, Math, and Technology department, and I made a little video. First time I've ever done it, and you sadly can tell it's the first time I've ever done it. The sound is really awful, but I go through how to prune a tree, and how not to prune a tree. So hopefully this is somewhat entertaining and educational. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kelly, and we're going to push play now.
This is a peppermint tree. It looks a lot like a weeping willow, but it is a peppermint tree. This tree has probably not been pruned a lot. We're in a city park, and cities in general don't have a lot of money to prune their trees, which is actually a good thing because trees don't need to be pruned every 2 to 5 to 7 years. For the most part, trees are just fine by themselves. We want to do a little structural pruning when they're young so that they grow up and have a good structure. But for the most part, once they reach a certain age, you don't need to touch them anymore. Now this tree should have been pruned probably about 10 years ago. If you can see up here, we have several branches that are crossing each other. Now where these branches touch, their bark rubs against each other, and it basically ends up being like a blister on your finger once you've been doing something too often. And the bark gets opened up and then leads the tree to be more susceptible to things like bacteria, viruses, and bugs. So about 10 years ago, this branch probably should have been taken off before it got so big. We could still take it off today. It's better to have taken it off 10 years ago, but our second best choice would be to take it off today. We have another branch, these two 6-inch branches above that are also having the same problem. So we'd have to make a judgment call. Maybe we would take this branch off and then it wouldn't be rubbing on either of those other two. But one of the very first things I would do if I was going to prune this tree is always the first thing. Take off the dead branches. Okay? Now I can't reach these. I would want to have a ladder, and I would want to take off all of the dead branches. The next thing is to take off the crossing branches, like I mentioned. This tree is a carrotwood tree, and it has had some unfortunate things happen to it. Right here, you can see right down to the hardwood. That is the dead wood in the center of all of the trunks. The living part of the tree is this outer part, the bark, actually. So you never want to see this heartwood. That's very bad. When it's exposed like that, bugs can really get into it. What probably happened was there was a branch here and somebody caught hold of the branch and ripped it off. And it ripped a lot of the bark with it and left the tree now open to diseases. When you want to cut a branch off, this is what you want it to look like eventually. This one right here, they left a little stump. And the tree will never be able to create enough wound wood, that's what this little collar is right here, to cover up this much of the stump. So we want to cut it a little closer than they did here. So one of the really important things about pruning trees is where to make that cut, how to make it. So these cuts were made by a gardener who was getting hit in the head by the branch every time they mowed. So they just cut it where it was convenient. But this is not an area that the tree would be able to cordon off that rot. So if rot started here on the edge of the heartwood, it would be able to make it all the way back into the trunk. Where the tree is able to cordon it off is where a new branch is formed. So it's the smaller branch coming off the larger branch, which is where it's able to do it. I want to clean up this cut so it doesn't cause any long-term harm to the tree. I'm going to take this little one off back here just because it's in my way. So I want to cut this branch. In this particular tree, I'm going to cut it pretty close to the trunk because this tree doesn't have a real pronounced branch bark, and I'll show you what that is. Okay, so just like that. Now let's look at a different branch. So here, you can see where the bark changes a bit. This right in here is where that branch bark is, and that could cordon off this section if we wanted to take that branch off. If we took this branch off, this is the main branch. This is essentially one of the trunks. It couldn't do it there, and that would be a topping cut. And so whatever rot entered the tree would keep coming through. So this is an older eucalyptus, probably more than 50 years old. It has sprouts growing out of it. These are called water sprouts, and you don't want them growing out of your tree. They will eventually become very unstable and rip out of the tree, which will do a lot of harm to the tree. We just want to remove all these. I'm going to just get some of the leaves out of the way so we can see what's going on here. Okay, so you can see this canker now that has all the sprouts out of it. What we want to do is remove these sprouts as close to the canker as we can. That will discourage them from growing back. So I'm going to just try to get my pruners in here as close as I can. These little ones like this, it's actually better if you rip them off. So like this one, I'm gonna rip it off. And that actually does a better job of encouraging it not to come back. This tree's a camphor tree. The branch color in this tree is a little easier to see. Some trees it's really hard to find, sometimes it's easy. You can see the kind of change in bark right along here. That is the branch collar, okay? So if we wanted to take this branch off, we'd want to cut it right about there. You don't want to cut that branch collar off because that's where the wound wood is going to form. And if we cut it flush, the tree wouldn't be able to wall off any of that future rot, and it would just stay there. The other thing I want to show you on this tree is it doesn't have water sprouts at the trunk like we saw in that eucalyptus, but it does have water sprouts coming up in the branches. So you can see right here, it has some. Okay? I'm going to cut those off. And if they were small enough, I could just rub or pull them off like I did on the eucalyptus. You can actually see the branch collar much better here on the smaller ones. You can see that little ridge of bark right there. That's the branch collar. Notice that there's one on this secondary branch coming off and on this one, but not on the main one. If you cut the main one, there's no way for that to cordon itself off. So if I wanted to get rid of this branch and this branch, and maybe some down here, it would actually be better to go back and do a thinning cut instead of a heading cut. And in that case, I'd come all the way back to the next branch, because there, once again, is a branch collar. So I could take it off there. The tree would very easily be able to cordon off that rot and would allow the rest of the branch to grow. So instead of trying to take the whole tree and making it smaller, I would want to thin the tree out. Sometimes this is called thinning, sometimes it's called lacing. But it has the same main thing. You're removing about half of the branches. Sorry, not half. Never remove half. You can never remove more than a third of the leaves from a tree at any one time. If you do, the tree will go into shock. Just like if you lost a lot of blood, you would go into shock. And you might die of the shock, not necessarily the blood loss. Trees act the same way. If you remove too many leaves, they shock. Basically because they don't know about humans, and they said, something just came and ate all of my leaves. Oh my gosh, I have to make more leaves or I'm going to starve to death. Because that's what leaves are. They're factories for making sugar, which is what trees live off of. So it tries to push out a lot of new leaves, and sometimes that sends them into a shock that they can't recover from, and the entire tree dies. This is an ornamental pear. It's a street tree here. And there was a branch removed here, and another branch was removed here. And you can see this is the wound wood trying to close off that big cut. So one of the reasons that we want to do a lot of structural pruning of the tree when it's young is because the branches are small. Here is what you want it to look like. The wound wood has had a chance to close the entire cut area. So now the hardwood in the center of the tree, underneath all that bark, is completely protected. No viruses, no bacterias, no bugs are going to get in there and rot away the hardwood. So this is exactly what you want to see. They cut on the outside of the branch collar, and they cut when the branch wasn't very big. These trees have just been cut today. One of the reasons they've been cut is because they're in a strip mall, and businesses in strip malls want their signs to be able to be seen from the street. If they place their signs in a different way or put the trees up against the building between the stores, you could still have shade and you could still see all the signs. This tree's life now has been greatly reduced. It is basically being killed by 1,000 cuts. And when you top a tree like this, it has zero ability to cordon off that rot. You can see this branch here. This is where it was topped last year. And it then grew a bunch of water sprouts from that, because the tree said, oh no, something came along and it took away all my leaves. So I need to overreact and grow a bunch of leaves very quickly. So it put out all of these branches. But I said that you want to open up the tree so it has some circulation in it. This tree has multitude of diseases, probably because it didn't have any circulation. You can see the tree has a lot of large branches. If I was going to prune this tree, instead of reducing its size, I would have reduced the number of branches within it so that the breeze could come through it. That's called thinning. These trees were not healthy. They were probably pruned several years ago, which did not help their health at all. And then they've been pruned today again, which is not helping their health. When I said unscrupulous, the tree trimmers, the reason I said that is these guys came and they pruned this tree. Now, what that tree is going to do this spring is push out 10 times more branches than it already has. And then the people who own the strip mall are going to say, oh no, the tree got really big, it got really bushy, and the merchants are now complaining that people can't see their signs. So in 2-3 years' time, these tree trimmers are going to be able to come back and prune it. If these people had hired certified arborists, certified by the International Society of Arboriculture, they would have had the trees pruned in the correct way. And these trees would not have need to be touched for a good 10 years, if ever again.
All right, great video, Kelly. So hopefully you found that video educational. I mean, how many of us have probably walked down the street and seen a top tree or not really known what to say when it comes to pruning? So hopefully that video will help us be a more educated population when it comes to our trees. So I guess with that, we have about 4 minutes left until 2 o'clock. We can actually stay longer than that if you like. But at this point, I am going to stop the recording so we can open it up for Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started.